We have a few different issues going on with the wallpaper. Doing the actual conservation, hiring a conservator to come in, is going to be a fairly involved and expensive process. We don't want to replace this wallpaper because it is historically significant.
Jessica, could you tell me about what you're working on today here in the third floor hallway?
Sure. So I'm going to be working on some wallpaper conservation today. So as you know, this wallpaper is almost 100 years old.
Yes, it is.
And so it has seen some better days. We have a few different issues going on with the wallpaper. Number one is that we do have some cracks in our plaster. Now, that is an issue that I can't fix. That's an issue for our actual conservator at some point. But due to having these cracks, we've had some problems with the adhesion of the wallpaper, especially along those cracks. And then we've also just got some other places where there's a seam in the wallpaper and the 100-year-old adhesive has just let loose. And so we've had some losses or in some places where the wallpaper is starting to kind of fall down. And we don't want those places to get any bigger, especially if you've got a piece hanging. Gravity can kind of pull on that paper and make that crack or that tear in the wallpaper worse over time. So basically what I want to do is just get it re-adhered back to the wall as kind of a temporary measure until we can have some longer term conservation done on the wall.
What process are you going to be using for this?
So I'm following our conservator's recommendations. We have a particular conservator that we work with on a lot of our historic services. And so the product that he recommended is actually something that's pretty easy to make, and a lot of people might have used it before. It's wheat starch paste.
Okay.
And so I know with your library background, you might have heard of that.
I have, yes.
But
pretty common resource for fixing books.
Yep, very commonly used in fixing books. I was thinking about it when I was doing the process of actually making the paste, and I realized this is what Irene probably was doing for her books.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that I'm doing that now. But basically it is just a mixture of water and wheat starch. You kind of cook it over the stove, make it into basically kind of a little jelly form. You want to make sure that you're using distilled or deionized water so that all of the minerals and impurities are removed from it. But basically you just kind of cook it up, smooth it out through a strainer to make sure that you don't have any lumps and bumps, and then it's ready to go. And so I've made up a big batch of that, and I'm just going to be going around and very carefully applying it to the back of the paper and places where it has fallen, kind of working it into the cracks, and then just kind of gently pressing, sealing it back to the wall, letting it dry, and hopefully that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so fairly simple process, but probably kind of time consuming because there's a lot you got to patch up today.
Yes, there's a lot of different places around here, so I'm going to be going around. We've also got some places where a section of wallpaper has completely detached, and so I do have to do a little bit of matching back to, okay, this fragment goes in this space.
Sure,
so it's
but
a little
you
bit
love
of a
puzzles. So
I
that
do love
works
puzzles
for you.
Yes, so that is going to be fun for me.
Well, I know in this area on tours, a pretty common question we get from people is they'll see the state of the wallpaper and they ask, why don't you fix it, all of it, or why don't you replace it? What would you say to those people to explain why we can't do that?
Well, number one, we don't want to replace this wallpaper because it is historically significant. It was chosen by Irene Douglas and her interior designer that she was working with at the time. It was installed around 1927, and she was working with a particular interior designer, D.R.C. Gaw, who was a very well-known arts and craft designer at that time. So it's pretty historically significant. It's almost 100 years old, so we want it to remain in place for as long as possible. But doing the actual conservation, hiring a conservator to come in, is going to be a fairly involved and expensive process. And so eventually we will get to that point where we can do that project. But this is basically just kind of a short-term measure to make sure that the wallpaper doesn't deteriorate much further before that long-term conservation can take place. The conservation process would probably look at a lot of factors, would probably fix some of the plaster cracks, and then a conservator could actually do some in-painting on the wallpaper as well. So, for example, I know I don't have this section of the wallpaper. It's missing, it's gone to history. But what a conservator can do is basically in-paint this. So they can very carefully match up the colors and kind of recreate that section of wallpaper. So that's really the job of a professional conservator, and that's why it's so time consuming and expensive
Yeah.
to actually have that work done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, great. I'll let you get back to your hard work that you have to do today. But if people have other questions for you, can they leave them in the comments?
Absolutely.
All right.
Happy to give what answers I have.
Great. So let us know if you have any questions for Jessica, and she'll answer them if you have them. Thanks.